If we are preparing for the best case scenario, we are not preparing at all. Um, when Western Washington University decided to close our campus and like many other universities in the state of Washington, when they did, it was based on, I guess, somehow limited information, even though me and others as well were calling for the closure of the campus weeks before we actually did. But anyway, I'm of course not blaming the authorities, the president, the decision makers at Western. We did what we could with the information we had, I guess, and I fully understand it's a very complicated, very consequential politically and economically decision. However, as just Farid Zakaria said the other day, a couple of days ago on CNN, it's time for us to look at the facts and just face the harsh reality. And I guess that even though this pandemic is definitely a very perfect example of a black swan, we know better now and we should act accordingly. Western is taking all the steps to try to overcome the difficulties posed by the pandemic, which means mostly moving the entire semester, spring quarter, sorry, online, which of course is the right thing to do. However, we are finding out, and this should not be surprising to anyone really, it's certainly not surprising to me that students are already reporting some problems that we could somehow prevent. Some of my colleagues in the communication department, and I'm assuming that that's the case in other departments at Western as well, have been inquiring with their students about the possible limitations, the problem they may face. And again, not surprisingly, the feedback is quite consistent. Many students have lost their jobs and they were depending on those jobs. Some of their family members lost their jobs, and as a consequence, they just report that they even imagine not being able to continue studying at Western. This certainly will be the case in a good percentage of students in the States. The other part of the report or the feedback from the students is that, again, not surprisingly, many of them they lack the basic means to effectively follow classes online, which is lack of laptops, a lack of reliable internet connection, and so on. Even according to some of my own research, which I started last year at Western, the composition, the socioeconomic composition in our university, even though very far, very privileged to some extent, or at least privileged, it's not homogeneous, and many of the students they struggle. So when I'm saying that we are not preparing, that we should not be preparing for the best case scenario, means that we need to face these harsh realities. In the States, unlike social democracies like here in France or most of Western Europe, unfortunately, in my opinion, we have established that employment and income determines the access and the quality of services such as healthcare, as you of course know, education, and particular higher education, child care, and so on. And that obviously means that our country is going to face a big economic and social problem in the future. And in the future means in a couple of weeks, even in a week when we start our quarter, we will see the consequences of it. Some of us will fall sick. Particularly, that's particularly threatening in some areas, like for instance, where there's bottlenecks, like ATUS or Western, where there's a lot of specialists that are actually helping all of us to try to navigate in a very short notice, being able to move our classes online, which is an incredible effort, and I really commend my colleagues at ATUS. So we need to think about this. Some of us professors will fall sick, some of the authorities, some of the staff, of course, which are under a lot of pressure right now. And we need to prepare for that eventuality. And the most important thing, in my opinion, too, is that unless the university, our university, and institutions across the country, really, they decide and opt for a course of action, and they make it very clear to all the stakeholders, and that's particularly in our case, the students and their families, to explain to them that, for instance, what is going to happen in spring with some of the professors will not be able to teach their courses online or not, just because they're sick or because there's a bottleneck and because staff fell sick. And in the long term, too, Next year, most likely, and anything else is really wishful thinking. I mean, it's most likely, almost absolutely certain that the next year, next academic year, will not be a normal academic year at all. And my guess, my informed guess, I guess, to some extent, is that the classes will have to be offered online and face-to-face, maybe face-to-face as optional, which means that we need to prepare for that eventuality too. We are not going to end this situation and magically all go back to normal at all. It will take a lot of time, and that's without even talking about the possible, again, very likely recession, economic recession that the states will face. And again, time will tell, very shortly actually, if our model, which has been successful so far, our economic model and social model to some extent, but very flawed as well. And now, again, like Farid Zakaria was explaining, I mean, our exceptionalism starts showing in the wrong way, and the fact that we don't have a very solid social net is starting to show. So anyway, very simply put, it's just making a call, this video for the authorities and my colleagues and everybody at Western in our community to understand that probably, and this is my opinion, very strong opinion, that unless we decide that we make very clear and we take the steps to make to prepare for a procedure that actually takes into account the fact that this is will not be a normal quarter at all, and there will be very long-lasting consequences. Inequality among students, socioeconomic inequalities that determine their rate of success, the possibility to effectively follow our classes. And we cannot punish our students, our poor students, or students who are struggling, or students with families of themselves who are sick. So when we plan our classes, it will have to be, and the university, by the way, is doing a really great job, pass, no pass, asynchronous courses, which I think is an extremely good idea. But I think that we can do better, and of course I don't have the answers. It's just I'm proposing a discussion that I believe that we need to have. And certainly for next year, start preparing what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure that in the States, and I believe that already is happening at certain school levels, they are deciding to just cancel the entire this academic year. We'll see. Next year, though, we need to be prepared. And ironically enough, I am a visiting professor, so I'm not tenure at Western, which means that myself and those in my situation are the ones that, if enrollment falls, will be the first ones to suffer the consequences. And again, in order not just to save my job or our jobs, it's actually the jobs of everyone, and most importantly, the success of our students, we need to ensure that we put into place now, and we announce explicitly and clearly to our students, our staff, to their families, to the students' families as well, what are we going to do when this, at the end, shows that we have to continue, maybe not with the lockdown, but I mean, there are some indications that this may be a JoJo situation where we will have to go into lockdown intermittently. There's a very interesting paper from published in MIT Technology Review, which I'm going to link to this video. Anyway, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of uncertainty, but I feel that these are things that we need to consider, and the university should definitely take leadership and plan accordingly and propose and ensure that students, staff, all of us in the university, we have a certain amount of certainty. There you go. Thank you very much. Wash your hands, and take care. Bye-bye.